Hey guys, this is Chemical Education here, and this is going to be the first video on my channel. I'm basically just going to talk about addiction, really, and what that kind of entails, and really the kind of hole that you dig yourself into through the misuse of different chemicals throughout your life. So to start this video out, I'm just basically going to tell my story from the very beginning. So as a teenager, I started smoking marijuana. Like most people, it is the gateway drug. And the first time I did it, I didn't really feel it. And then after a couple of times, I started to get those effects, food started to taste amazing. I just started to feel great. Like I'd have these different moments where like I would close my eyes and it would feel like I was just like having this out of body experience. It was just this beautiful, amazing thing that I was thoroughly enjoying at the time. And throughout my high school years, I would continue to smoke weed. And towards the end of it, it got to the point where I was starting to smoke quite heavily, and it got to after I graduated from high school, we basically got to the point where it was everyday usage. So we got to the point where we're smoking marijuana every day. Now, people may think, oh, it's not the worst thing in the world, it's just a bit of weed, but that's where it all begins. So I was smoking weed with tobacco as well, so you add the nicotine to it, and it actually does create quite an addictive substance. So there was this realization that I came to about, I would say, 6 months into it, where there was a point where I was smoking with a friend and we ran out of weed and we just got really irritable and we didn't really know what to do. And we just kind of had that realization that we had actually become reliant and addicted on this certain substance. And it's when we realized we kind of had a bit of a problem with it. So fast forward a little bit after that, we enter in Australia the mushroom season, and I was an 18-year-old kid. I'd never really explored mushrooms before. My friends had talked about it and said it's pretty amazing, and you should definitely try it out. It's going to be a cool experience. So I had a couple of mushroom trips in a row, and I remember the first time I took it, I just remember like thinking whatever it is in life that I'm seeking, it's this. Like whatever that connection, that feeling that you get when you're on a psychedelic, like that was what I was seeking. Like that connection to the universe, that clarity of mind, that just overwhelming feeling of love and just appreciation was just amazing, and it just led me down this path of believing that drugs were the key to kind of solving all your problems, or just like finding um, this different part to yourself that you never thought existed. So throughout that season and throughout that year, I started, tripping a fair bit, taking mushrooms pretty frequently, and they got to the point where I was really interested in looking at other substances to kind of change the experience up and get a different experience. So I was really interested in the works of Alexander Shulgin at this time. If you don't know who he is a famous organic chemist who made a bunch of different tryptamines and thiamines. If you know his books, Pikel and Tikel, teaches you how to create a whole range of different psychoactive substances. It was one of his favorite things to do was research how these psychoactive compounds and how they affect the mind and body. So I was really interested in that, and it led me to taking my first stimulant, which was, unfortunately for me, I decided to take methamphetamine as my first stimulant, which in hindsight was a absolutely horrible decision. I regret it. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. It was the worst decision I ever made. So this particular time, I was actually looking for amphetamine, so just straight speed. And this is something I'll talk about in another video, the differences between methamphetamine and amphetamine. But I was looking for amphetamine, and I ended up being like, ah, fuck it. Like, I'll just get methamphetamine. It's only a methyl group, right? Like, I was studying chemistry at the time. It's just a methyl group. Surely it can't make that much of a difference. So I ended up getting some methamphetamine and taking it, and I just remember feeling like this is the best feeling I've ever had in my life. I just feel like I'm picking up every single piece of information that is going on right now. I feel so much clarity. I just feel like in the zone. It was fantastic for the first couple of hours. And then I made the huge mistake of smoking weed with it, which for any person who is, I guess, has any knowledge of psychiatry or psychology would know that methamphetamine and weed mixed together is a terrible decision to make. Most likely, it will end up in drug-induced psychosis, and that is what happened to me. So I took the methamphetamine. I was up for 24 hours, 48 hours, and it got to this point where I hit this moment of psychosis and paranoia, and then from that point on, my life was changed forever. Weed was never the same. I just got paranoid and anxious on it. It just never really delivered what it used to deliver for me. I started getting these floaters, these visuals in my eyes. It was just like, the whole like, I guess, biochemistry of my brain had been changed from the experience. And that is what kind of caused me to go into psychosis, because the one thing you have to understand about addiction, for those people that don't know, is it's heavily tied in with mental illness, especially after prolonged use. And if you're using stimulants all the time, especially if you're ramping up your dopaminergic system all the time, you're most likely going to induce some form of psychosis. Now, psychosis is a very broad term. It just means a disease of the mind, really. But if you're constantly taking drugs and constantly stimulating your mind that way, you will eventually probably come into some mental barriers that will hurt you. So along this journey, this is where we start to get into a period where I was starting to heavily use MDMA. So after this, I was using psychedelics. I had my first experience on acid, which was pretty incredible. I saw molecules dropping off trees. It was crazy. I was at a mate's birthday. Like, we were supposed to be in the city going to bars. Me and my friend decided to take acid, and as soon as they went to the bar, we just looked up at the bar because it was like up these steps, and we just knew, like, no, we're not doing that tonight. Like, that's just not going to happen while we're tripping my balls off. This shit was strong as fuck. So we ended up just like walking through parks and like talking and whatnot. And then we ended up like at his house. And I just remember like on his wall, like the whole like paint thing was just like turning into rainbows and stuff. We watched Alice in Wonderland. It was a really crazy trip. Like, I've never quite had an experience like that before. That was the first time it was like incredibly visual for me. And these tabs were very pure 150 microgram tabs from the Netherlands, so they were doing their trick. But yeah, this leads into the MDMA phase, where I remember it was New Year's of 2015, and this is when I'd had it a couple of times before, but I hadn't really had like the effects that you would expect. For some drugs, it just, I don't know, it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't work the first time. It could have just been having impure drugs that I was taking. But anyway, for some reason, this MDMA was incredibly pure, and it floored me. There were two peak experiences, I could say, that have brought me the most pleasure out of an experience, and this MDMA trip was one of them. And since after that MDMA trip, I was just chasing the dragon. So for all of 2016 and even parts of 2017, I was just frequently taking MDMA. Like, for 2016, it was at least once every week. So it was all the fucking time, just like going out clubbing, taking MDMA, just having an absolute ball, just different friend groups, just bouncing around, just trying to kind of get high all the time and really enjoy it. And this is also when I started to get introduced to ketamine as well. So as you can see, we're starting to layer different drugs. There's also, during this time in 2016, was a point when I was introduced to benzodiazepines and opiates. So I think I took Valium and Xanax for the first time in 2016. I didn't really enjoy the experience, so I didn't chase it that much at the time. As for opiates, I did enjoy it. I really had a lot of fun with oxycodone and whatnot. It really just, I don't know, just made me feel like a massive bear was hugging me. That's the best way to describe it. So this is kind of how the bare bones of my like addiction story starts, right? Like we have this event which kind of caused a drug-induced psychosis. We knew prior to these events, like I had this self-realization that I was addicted to weed before the mushroom experiences. And even though I knew that I was an addict, I wasn't ready to face that, and I kept consuming drugs, and this pattern of behavior kept on going for years. Like, I'm not going to get into the full extent of it, but I'm just talking about what happened in the years of 2015, 2016, early 2017. And this pattern of behavior went on all the way up until mid 2018, 20, nearly into 2019. There's strong pattern of drug use. And I think the worst part about it for me was losing myself, just losing all sense of control, losing clarity, tuning out of just everything, wasn't able to hold conversation anymore. It got to the point where I was hurting the people around me. I was making terrible decisions that just really, really affected people. And I just wasn't conscious. Like, I wasn't conscientious of anything going around me. I was so focused on myself and how I felt that I wasn't I wasn't giving a fuck about the people that cared for me. And it was hard for them to kind of watch me descend into this hole of just absolute, just debauchery, and just fucking just wanted, looking like I'm just wanted to end my life just through this absolute misuse of these compounds, which can be really, really helpful when used in the right context. But that's not why I kind of made this video. That's my story. Now, I really want to put this video out here to kind of teach people how they can actually get themselves out of this hole, and what are the necessary steps for you to take to, get yourself onto sobriety. Or another thing that you can do is just be a responsible drug user and integrate things into your life so that you have value within your own life, and it isn't just solely focused around drug use. So the first step, obviously, within this process is the self-realization that you have a problem. That's pivotal. And most drug addicts know this, that they do have a problem. They realize it early on that they have a problem. And it's about addressing the problem. You can't run away from it. You just have to look at it and say, yes, I do have this problem. Like, I need to stop. Let's try and work a way around it. And from there, just do a bit of a detox for a bit. Do 21 days of just getting your mind clear. Even if you feel like you have to rely on something else, like if it's just like the main substances you've been addicted to, let's just say, like, you have a period of anxiousness and you just have like one drink in between, like, that's going to help you more, like if it's going to level you out rather than relying on the substances that have been feeding you for so long. The next step is integration of important activities within your life which are going to give you substance and meaning. So one of the biggest things that I ever did for myself was start getting introduced into self-help. So reading self-help books and integrating self-help ideas into my life. So things like meditation. So daily meditation is, I would say, pivotal for getting yourself out of addiction and getting yourself out of drug-induced psychosis. It really helps you to become the observer of your thoughts. And once you become the observer of your thoughts, you kind of have power over them. Like they don't have the same power they always did. Like you're always gonna have those when you're in addiction. You're gonna have those thoughts, those feelings that just make you want to do more, do more, do more. And once you observe that and you just ride it out, you realize that once those cravings are gone, you just feel normal. They just kind of go away and you just focus on other things. So meditation is a really great tool for you being able to check yourself and actually see yourself in that moment. And I'm not going to say it's one of those like things that's going to change you overnight. Meditation is one of those practices where it's a discipline and it's about showing up. So the more you show up every day, even if it's 5, 10 minutes, as long as you show up, you will notice the differences in your psychology after a month, for sure. Without a doubt, you'll see the differences in your psychology. And for, the best thing about it is the meditation does promote neurogenesis, so it will start to repair some of the neurons in your brain that have been destroyed and through drug use. So meditation is a great one. The second one I would say is a daily schedule with written goals. Now, if you know about any self-help books or any people who talk about self-help, you'll know that it's pivotal to have goals in your life, especially for, I think for anyone you need to have a course in your life, something planned out that you want to do, something to achieve on a daily basis. And it can be something like writing a sketch out. It can be as simple as I just wake up, I have a shower, then I meditate, and then I, you know, do some work on something I love. It may be music, you might be studying, like who knows what you're doing. Um, Writing that all out as a to-do list and ticking it off, because what it will do is it will give you that natural kind of dopamine hit and it will naturally make you feel good because it feels like you're working towards something. Then you set those goals, so you make the activities within your day integrated around your goals, and you will start to notice that you start to feel better and better and better, and you add that meditation on top of that and you start to get a lot of clarity. The third big thing I would say is exercise. So a lot of addicts, I doubt many addicts are actually actively exercising. So exercise is huge. It regulates your hormones, it regulates your neurotransmitters. It's just a natural kind of dopamine hit or natural endocrine hit. Like for men, at least, it produces more testosterone, which helps balance us out, gives you a natural dopamine and serotonin spike after a workout. It really just helps. It's just like another discipline adding into your life, because at the end of the day, with addiction and getting over addiction, the whole idea is for you to take personal responsibility, for you to take responsibility for your actions and be a responsible human being who can be within the society that we live in, because so many people can't, well, a lot of people do not want to take that responsibility, and it's up to you. Unfortunately, you can have people that help you for sure, and it's great. The support network is huge, you do need it, but you have to take some responsibility yourself, because ultimately it's your actions that have put you in that hole. So you need to dig yourself out. And I believe that through the acts of meditation, through a daily schedule, through written goals and whatnot, and through the use of just constant exercise, create a schedule based for exercise. Whether it be, you could be the type of person who likes to do weights and resistance training, or you could be the type of person that prefers aerobic exercise. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're getting around half an hour in most days, you're going to feel a lot better. So these are kind of like three kind of key points that I believe will really help you to kind of get on the right path to getting out of addiction and getting out of drug fueled psychosis, and get you on the right path and see where your shortcomings have been in the past and how you can become the person that you really want to be for the people around you. Because I think that most addicts know that when a lot of the stuff they're doing is, but at the core of their being, they know it's wrong, and they know that they're hurting the people around them, and they don't want to. Like, the last thing you want to do is hurt those people, but you just have these cravings and these urges which are just so strong and so overwhelming that it just overwhelms you as a person, and that these are just the tools that you kind of equip yourself with to overcome these urges. And once you have these tools and you start integrating them into your life, you don't have the problems that you used to have so much anymore, and you just start becoming a more wholesome person. You're just more conscientious, you're more in the moment, and you'll start to enjoy life for what it is, and you won't need those chemical compounds. And even if you do, let's say, start using chemical compounds, you use them in a more wholesome context. So you use it to amplify your experience and enjoy those moments with the people around you even more. So that's what these chemicals are for, you know. Like, they're not here to. I think a good saying about drugs in general is they are just chemicals. They don't discriminate, right? It's all about the user and the intention of the user when using it. And you just need to kind of learn through your experience that the drugs themselves aren't bad, and you can be a responsible drug user if you so please, but you have to discipline yourself and make it so that drugs aren't completely your life. You need to structure and create your own life and make it so that drugs are just something that are on the side. They're something that just add to the experience and give a little bit of flavor rather than them being the center point of it. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it. That's all I really have to say. I kind of talked about my experiences and how I've got myself out of addiction, um, and onto the right path in life. And I think like these points can really help. Like, I really, for any person really struggling with addiction, I would highly recommend just watching some of Jordan Peterson's talks, reading his book, or The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen A. Covey. It's also a really great book to teach you how to really effectively be a good person and be a more wholesome, rounded person in your life. And then, of course, just meditation, because it's a sacrifice of 10 minutes a day, which is going to rewire your brain in a way that you didn't think possible. So for all those people out there struggling with addiction, I said love your way, and I really hope that you're able to overcome your issues, because it's a horrible place to be. I've been to the deepest, darkest depths of that hole, and it's not fun. It's a truly horrible place, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It sucks. It really does, and you just don't know what to do. And I made this video, and I want to make this channel to kind of just really help people understand what these substances are about, and if you're struggling with these issues, how you can get out of it. Anyway, that's it. Chemical Education out.